Welcome inside to League Unlock, all you lovely individuals. Eric and Mark with you guys today. And after a couple of slower days in terms of the off-season news, we finally got some somewhat juicy news in regards to Origen, Deficio, Astralis, Expect Gay, everyone involved with that squad, finalizing their roster for 2019. And this is an interesting one because they were one of the first teams to be updated in the contract database that they were bringing in Alfari, Nukeduck, and Sheriff. And then there was no official announcement until today, which is basically 2 weeks later. So I'm not sure what was going on there. And then they wait for their assistant coach to announce it on Twitter.
Yeah, it just needed a couple more days of negotiations, figure some stuff out here. Yeah, but hey, Astralis, Origen, whatever you want to call them, they're figuring it out now. And I think that when you look at the 5-man roster that we're going to unveil for you guys, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, so the newest members coming in as heavily rumored are Mithy in that bottom lane as support, and Kold, formerly of Unicorns of Love, joining the previously announced 3 other members. And I mean, initial reactions, I'm not completely blown away, but I mean, that's a playoff team for sure. They should compete. If I'm looking at Kold here, that is the best roster he's ever played with, the best laners that he's ever had.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a treat for him to have these options available for him and where they should be having pressure on the map when you're looking at the likes of an Alfari and a Nukeduck here in the LEC. Absolutely should have options for where you want to gank and when. But what I really want to focus on here is that bottom lane of Sheriff and Mithy. Of course, this is the split of Sven and Mithy heading into obviously the year where we've lost every type of major bot lane duo.
Except for Apollo and Hakuo.
Yeah,
they remain.
So vital.
Can't be destroyed.
What a treat to keep that one compared to the rest. But actually here, Sheriff and Mithy, I think, is a combination that can really work wonders here for Origen. I think combining that veteran playmaking skill that Mithy does still have, and I know that he has, with the likes of a young ADC and Sheriff who has shown that he can pop off and take over games recently last year, I think this is good for Origen moving forward.
Yeah, and obviously this is kind of, I'm going to assume, a hand-picked roster that Deficio has put together. We know how much he loves Nukeduck. We knew that that was a main relationship that he wanted to see. And a guy bringing in someone like Mithy, who, again, he has relationship with. They've been together, involved, talking about League of Legends and stuff off the rip for multiple years now. Everyone's going to say Mithy's washed up after his time with TSM, where, yes, he did not look comfortable. I still think he was just trying to do too much for this team behind the scenes in terms of communication and trying to get them back on track when they were struggling. I don't think he's done. I think we're going to be a resurging Mithy.
Yeah, I know that Mithy's not done. Absolutely. Mithy, even at his time with TSM, when he was personally struggling, was still taking time out of his own scrim and out of his own practices to focus on and try to help other members of the TSM squad, try to work things out there. And he absolutely still is that team player that you would love to have here and that Origen is lucky to have. And I think when you talk about his gameplay and what you can expect on the Rift, I'm hoping that we see it more so a return to the G2 Mithy that we had seen in the previous years, about his excellent control around certain objectives from the bot lane and what else there. I think that's what Mithy's strength really is, and I think that's what hopefully is unlocked here with Origen.
And for, again, Deficio, he did interviews before this roster was officially announced, saying they're going to have a mix of young talent and veteran leadership. There's really only one piece of young talent on this roster with Sheriff and 4 guys that have been playing for a couple of years around him now. I think this should be a playoff team. I don't think it's going to be on the same level of what we've seen out of the top tier rosters so far in the likes of Fnatic still, G2, and Misfits. I think that's clearly your top 3, maybe Origen comes in that 4 to 6 range.
Right, I think that absolutely not a superhouse, powerhouse type of team right now built for Origen, but I think when you do look at this roster and what you can maybe do here in the LEC, and you have, yes, those titans as it seems at the top, but there might be some struggles there for those new teams as they make adjustments to their roster changes as well. So you never know, and I think that if you're Origen and you know that you might be in this kind of, 6th to 3rd possible type of situation, that if you can get out of the gates with a good start here, pick up those points, could be very important towards locking up a playoff spot.
And I think we've already seen that both Alfari and Nukeduck, when they play at their best, can be top 3 in their position in the entire league. So the main question mark comes from that bottom lane. And Mithy, we've seen groom young AD carries multiple years in a row. Started with Tabs, then he played with Freeze, and then obviously Sven, when he was still a young pup named Niels. He helped groom into one of the best AD carries in the Western scene. So can he do it again with Sheriff? Because we saw on a struggling H2K roster that Sheriff was the featured carry and the lone bright spot in a lot of games.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the combination of both Sheriff and Mithy and what can be brought here with this partnership, and you have to remember that last year, Sven and Mithy, yes, of course, has been this long pairing duo, and of course, making the trip together to TSM, it did seem that they weren't ever really on the same page as far as each other in bot lane, whether it was about engaging on someone else or backing off on certain team fights. The two of them never seemed to be on the same page as they had been in the past, so I think now is an important time for Mithy to make this type of switch over, to join Sheriff, and hopefully those two are on the exact same page as well, because as you said, as we've seen from Sheriff, even on the likes of H2K, was absolutely able to stun us with some of the plays that he's been able to make and really show off some of that skill.
And I think it's kind of a comparable setup to what we had with Upset on Schalke, with 4 huge veterans surrounding him heading in to his rookie campaign. I know this isn't the rookie split for Sheriff, but again, just totally different from that H2K roster. He's going to be surrounded by all of that experience internationally in that bottom lane with Mithy specifically, and I think we're going to see him, elevate to that top tier level of AD carries in Europe heading into 2019. And really, Schalke got to the finals in the summer split, and I think this roster, the surrounding pieces that are around that young AD carry are actually better. So maybe Origen get the finals too.
Yeah, and hey, I still really believe in the likes of Mithy and the way that you think of how he approaches the game and how he can examine things and analyze things. I think that certainly is still quite an accomplishment in what he can provide towards a team.
And there's no doubt he's going to be looking to prove everybody wrong, because his career is basically over in at least the people from North America's eyes, because they were so incredibly disappointed with TSM's run.
Yeah, and again, rightfully so disappointed, and Mithy does have a lot to prove here still.
Oh, yeah.
But we have seen enough from him in his career, and we have known what he's able to provide here, and there certainly shouldn't be too many doubters thinking that he won't be able to do this back in the LEC. But again, does need to prove himself once again due to those poor performances.
Yeah, we'll see if it was just a one-year blip with TSM where he was not playing up to standard, or if it really is the downward trend and the coming to the end of Mithy's career. But he always has coaching. He'll be a great coach, but I think he rebounds here in 2019.